Hello and welcome everyone to Great Conversations. Today we are going to talk about multisites, WordPress multisites in specific. So multisites in general, for the ones of you who don't know, is a feature that is not really used by everybody inside WordPress, only by a few percent, but actually it's a really powerful feature. And we're gonna take a look at how you can set up a multi-site, how you can use it in the most performant way, what examples on what sites you want to use multi-sites, and therefore we have one of the most well-known and most famous, I would say, experts on the topic multi-sites in general. Welcome, Robert Windisch.
Hi. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. So first of all, I think most of you probably know Robert Windisch. I mean, you can recognize him by exactly how you can see him here. His straw hat and his green shirt. But for everybody who doesn't know Robert, may you maybe explain yourself a little bit, introduce yourself a little bit. Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you that much known in the WordPress universe?
Yeah, so I'm in WordPress since 2 decades now. When I joined in 2005, it was a really up and coming CMS, and almost everybody talked about it already at that time. So when I joined, there was already so much like buzz going on, and then I joined the German forum and was like ranking up to a moderator, being then technical admin for the German website and doing translations for WordPress, and also then joined Imsite at that time to make sure that we can help WordPress grow in Germany. And that then leads to now a 130 people agency for enterprise people in the WordPress space.
And thank you very much. And why are you considering yourself, or I am considering you, a WordPress multi-site expert? Why? What do you use multi-sites a lot, or are you just curious how the feature works?
Yeah, I'm. We were using multi-site since 2008, when it was a fork of WordPress called WordPress MU, WPMU. Um, and we were using it at that time to simply achieve, for example, for the German WordPress website. We had a website, we had a FAQ, we had some other things planned and other things to really engage with people. And we did the multi-user feature, or the multi-site feature, already at time, and we were then updating it every time when a new version came out, like right after a WordPress release. And so for us, this all these features were really normal in a WordPress way. So then when multisite was merged into WordPress with WordPress 3.0, for us it was really a normal thing that we finally don't need to have like this extra version running, and to simply be with core WordPress, and also have the possibility for then at the WordCamp in Germany in 2010 in Berlin, that we had the possibility to answer the question, how would we do a multilingual plugin? And we were like, yeah, let's use multi-site, because that's the normalest way for us to do. And so our other story of our multilingual plugin of multilingual press began, because we were simply asked, and then the follow-up question was, is there a plugin for that? And we were like, not yet. And so then we kicked off the other thing, and for us it was really something normal, as we were using multisite for almost every client project, and it's right now also the main feature for us. So that's why we call the other thing single site, that nobody in our company is confused by using this normal version of WordPress that everybody is using, because we are normally using the multi-site feature as the default.
So for you, the multi-site is actually the default WordPress installation in your company, and single site is more of strange. That why would you
Yeah,
use?
some people don't need those lovely features for multi-site that really have an ease if you have like more sites and bigger sites. And as we deal with enterprise companies and with big companies that have like um, country stretching entities, and then for us the multi-site feature is a normal one, and that's why we are like known for multi-site and multilingual in the WordPress space, and that's why so many things. For example, at WordCamps, people come up to me and go like, "Hey, someone sent me your way. I have a question about multisite." and so because like I'm very easy to see and very easy to find the work.
Yeah, you always visible.
Yeah, and when people go like, yeah, that's now too many multi-site questions. Go find
Yeah,
this
yeah.
this
Talk
this
to talk to
person.
the guy with the straw hat and the green shirt.
Yeah. Then people come my way, and I'm happy to talk every day and night
Yeah.
about multi-site.
Yeah, actually, I think I already sent some people your way as well. Like I
See?
sent, oh yeah, talk to that guy. Yeah, you see
Yeah,
that guy
it's
over
it
there?
is
Yeah,
easy to
talk
get rid of people because you know them. They regret like having a conversation because like they think they have a 5-minute conversation with me, and I
to
open them like, hey, maybe this plugin
yeah.
is something you use for you, or maybe this feature you should look at that. And then my most loving feature, the multi network feature, the multi-site feature that I
Oh,
went up.
I'm gonna have a
Yeah,
custom down the road for
I'm
you.
sure about that.
But
But
before we go down that road, because now we're getting really specific, let's just clear things up first. So we already referenced the feature multi-site a lot, but let's maybe you can get an explanation from your point of view. What is a multi-site? What is the difference between a single site, as you call it, and a multi-site in WordPress?
yes, so the a multi-site is basically multiple instances of WordPress on one installation. So you have just one normal WordPress installation, and you have multiple instances where you can have different plugins and different themes all over the place, and the users are the same. So it really empowers you if you have kind of similar plugins and themes on those sites. And it's, for example, the biggest use case is WordPress.com, and so everybody then has a easy installation there, or easy instance there, where they can simply ramp up an instance of that in like a few seconds, and then they can like enable different plugins that are set up for them to be enabled, and but they cannot install solutions. So it's really good for tailored solutions where people are have a security net below them to not screw up their installation.
Yeah, so that's actually a pretty perfect explanation, I would say. So you have different websites, WordPress websites, they can kind of run simultaneously and have different look and different plugins active, but the installation layer is the same. So they are working on the same installation. How if I and we are gonna do that in a couple of minutes. If I now make my single site a multi-site, what is the differentiation? What is happening? What is, from a technical perspective as well, what is the difference?
So the smallest difference is that you need to log in again. Sorry, because some cookie things were going on, and you need to install again. Need to log in again, and then new tables are able to create, because they were already able to create in the database, but now WordPress is prepared for um, re- like getting those people in, and a few extra tables were already installed for the usage of like more sites on that. So I think there's already 3 or 4 tables already installed, or like already activated in the database, and then like more tables can be added in a second's notice.
Yeah, and just for the user, you don't have to enter the tables or create the tables by yourselves. WordPress will take care of it. So by default, as far as I concerned, I think 3 extra tables are registered when you create a multi-site or make it a multi-site. And then one or two things I want to mention is you will now then see, and we will see that in a couple of minutes, a network layer. So you have now a network set up where you can maintain and manage all the sites, but each and every site is specific in its own and can then manage the plugins or themes. And you also get a new user role, essentially. So not a user role that you see on a single installation, but you can see once you create a user or edit an existing user, you can now check the box of giving this person, this user, a super admin access. What is a super admin, Robert?
Yes, a super admin is a user that has access to all sites in their network, not in the installation. We come later to that, but in the one site where they have the user capability of super admin, they are more than an admin. They are super admin. Just imagine them with a cape on their back, and they have the possibility to jump to all the sites in the multi-site, because an administrator, as a normal the maximum capability in on a single site, those users cannot go to a different site in the multi-site unless a super admin made them be admin or a different user role in a different site. So it's already, just imagine WordPress.com, they are already separated with each other, and they cannot simply jump, like simply not log in into the other site, because the other site can be a totally different user, and only a super admin can log in all these sites, because they have already access to them, and they can make anybody else a super admin, or they can give like an admin into one site be be a subscriber or a author on a different site. By that's just like since WordPress 3.0, since 2010, this is already like a capability brought into WordPress.
Yeah, so because we're adding an extra layer of management, a network management layer, we need an extra capability essentially. So there can still be admins on each specific site, which they cannot be or don't have to be super admins and see all the sites, because this then needs to be a separate capability, because you, from time to time, you might only add an admin to a specific site and not automatically give them access to all your sites, because this could be kind of tricky. So just to get some terminology right, so we're talking about a multi-site. A multi-site has then this layer of network, and network is the entire management layer inside the multi-site. So you're also gonna see it in the URL as well. So there's a network WP admin area, and each website is a site, or you can call it a sub-site, for example, which is a website on its own. We tackled super admin. So this is like the basic terminology of what a multi-site, yeah, needs or has. Now you already mentioned WordPress.com, and you also kind of mentioned there are a couple of features that can simply be activated. Is there, like, your opinion? Do you think there is a reason why a user, when he or she sets up a multi-site, should not be opting into that feature? Is there a reason for you why not using a multi-site?
Yes, the easiest non like deal breaker for multi-site is if the WordPress installations are completely different in plugins and theme wise. Um, so if you, for some reason, you have your own multi-site and you decide to have on, like, let's say you have 5 sites in a multi-site, and you decide to have a different SEO plugin on all of them. Like, I would say, like, please, like, consider a different job in your line of work. But some people, maybe that's an easy way to have a differentiator. If your mapping of plugins is so different, vastly different from all the other sites, um, then it doesn't make sense. So, for example, if you think about like, hey, WordPress.com sounds awesome, I can do this. I'm now offering a hosting service, and I'm hosting WordPress on a, like, I install in Multisite, and then I start hosting and charging people to have run their websites. This was tried a decade ago. Please don't try it again. It will not survive. You will not survive that. It's not a sustainable business, because many people before you tried it. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, like, the track record didn't check out for that, because you're competing, for example, with WordPress.com, and they offer a free website. So you have a hard time competing with those people. And we saw like hosting companies do this. We saw like entrepreneurs do this. And I do not have a current existing hosting solution similar to WordPress.com that is successful. If someone here hears this and go like, I have a successful solution, please come forward to me. I'm really interested to hear that. But the normal way is like, if that is your goal and you have vastly different plugins on all installations, multi-site is not a solution you're looking for.
All right. And so we tackle, like, this is not what you're looking for. What are examples? Like, what are scenarios or use cases where you would say this is ideal? You should use, or at least try to use, a multi-site for this. What are some of the things you can think of?
So there is this WordPress.org has a showcase, and in this showcase there is the flavor multi-site. And so what I'm now telling you is not the Robert thinks this is a use case. This is a use case. Universities. So universities have, for example, departments in the university that are allowed and able to have vastly different looking websites, because you have physics department, you have the chemical department, you have the economy department, and all these areas have then their own subsites. So they can have like other parts of the curriculum on those possibilities on these subsites. So multisite simply enables those admins to be in control of the installation and to be in control of managing those plugins, those themes in the whole installation, and have a visibility of whose users, which users are on there. We now have new students that need to come in. They need access to this department, or we have someone is leaving the university, so they need to remove their access, and they just need to remove their access on one WordPress installation because it covers all sites in the installation. So it's an easy onboarding, offboarding solution, and again, an easy way moving forward with that, with like simply using those capabilities, enabling new departments to sprung up and having the possibility to really be at service for their students. And the other thing that we use and have as customers is the feature called global brand management. So that means that if you are a global company and you are the like technical owner of those sites, um, we had phone calls ages ago about one particular big pharmacy person, and they were like in charge of all the sites of this company, and they had some like nightmares about some of their sites being hacked, because in some parts of the world, their marketing department in that country just needed a landing page for like a local conference, and they were just like paying someone, spinning the site up, and after the conference, everybody forgot about the site. But the site was still online with the URL of the brand, and like nobody did updates because why? It's just the event is over. And like the hosting was paid for 1 year in advance. So like from hosting side, everybody was fine. But like the brand manager, or like the person in charge of dealing with the branding impact of like hacked site and like defaced websites, they were really interested in the solution that enables them to know that all sites are on the current version of a plugin, and that if they change, for example, the CI/CD, the corporate design, corporate identity of their brand, that like all sites adhere to this change. So they were really looking for basically a multi-site installation to
Mhm.
be able to have a possibility to rake in all the different like installations, all different kinds of deployment that all the websites have in their whole company.
So instead of like creating single sites for this specific use case, like we have a landing page for this event, you would suggest like create a website in your multi-site network. You can make sure it looks all right, and once the event is done, you will still see it in your dashboard. It will still show up. You can now turn it off or delete it entirely, or at least see what's going on, have it compatible with the WordPress version, update it, because you're only updating one's instance. You don't have to update each and every site, and therefore maybe forgetting about a site like this. As another instance, so we talked about universities and like then reasons when you like use case where you have the same design or like global brand guidelines. One thing I would like to add there as well is franchise websites, because at that point as well, you do have several different sites, and each site has to be maintained and kind of operated individually a little bit. So the site owner, maybe the franchise owner, needs to again have like the same different opening hours, different things they want to kind of publish, or like have different marketing content, maybe essentially. But each and every site needs to be set up really, really similarly. You need to maintain them all. Like obviously the franchisee probably won't do WordPress updates, so you need to take care of that. And also you have exact same thing. You need to have global brand guidelines that need to be consistent across all sites, and you have like this similar user base. You won't have that vastly different plugins on each and every site active, because the setup should or is probably exactly the same. And I think another use case is that you forgot to mention is multilingual websites, right? Because
Mm, yes,
I mean, you don't have to use a multi-site to make things multilingual, but I think you have quite an opinion of why would you use a multi-site for a multilingual site? Is that a good idea? Is that a bad
so
idea?
yes and no. I added them to the if you are global brand manage, if you global manage a global brand and you have like, for example, Portugal and Brazil, their languages are like similar-ish, but they are different countries, and you do not want to have the one person from Portugal touching the sites of the Brazilian website. So that's in that regard, like language is already like an extension of the global brand management. But if you are in one country and you just want to have like different languages there, Multisite offers you the capability to have those difference between posts and pages, like in different languages, that you don't need to have a plugin do the translation or the possibility of the um, fallback of the language. Because, for example, if you're using the single site plugins, and we know why the single site plugins exist, because there's nothing in core yet that you can do. Like, it's on the roadmap, but it's not in core yet. And so the single site plugins, if you, for example, have a German website and you want to have add an English translation to that, then the normal WordPress would simply say like, okay, that's a 404. You just like the URL that you entering. I have no idea what you meant. I have no idea what you want to see. It's a 404, and so those plugins need to then jump in and go like, no, 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 there is a site. This is the content. Please show this content. And with multi-site, we don't need to do this, because multi-site will simply see like, the URL you are entering before the site name or the post name that's the French version of the website.
You mean like de dot your site dot
Yes, or like
R?
your website, your example.com slash of fr slash, and then you have like contact, and the WordPress will say like, okay, I know the first starting of the URL, either subdomain or subdirectory or own domain, because that's the luxury of multi-site. You can have your custom domains for your custom language, or for a different language, and so WordPress will already work on that and then show the post in French, show the post in English, because that has nothing to do with translation plugin. The translation plugins are just, air quotes, just there to connect those translations with each other, so that you don't get punished by search engines, and that you can link between them on the other sites. Other than that, the translation plugins in Multisite really just enable you to work easy on the back end and make sure that the front end is connected with each other. But the lion part of the equation on the single site plugins for translations, that is a core feature that we simply use on the multi-site way. So that's, we have less like performance things that we need to do, like less calculation. So as I always say, we like the multi-site translation plugins produce performance like trees produce oxygen by accident, by simply existing. So we just, in us not standing in the way of WordPress core, like our multilingual press is not standing in the way of a website being rendered, because that's all core and
Yep.
we have nothing to do with that. So that's why we don't add extra processing calculations to like database queries and all of that. That's just core. That's not us.
Yeah, I do like this aspect of it, like this performance aspect, because it's already core and you're just using a feature that core offers and using several instances, several sites as different country specific websites. You're not adding the layer that the plugin then needs to configure. Okay, which language are you actually viewing? Okay, I need to go through the database and take the look at the exact right post and now deliver it. You don't need that layer because you just have a single site for it. Okay, we talked a lot about multi-sites yet. Let's maybe just quickly go through the process of how you can actually enable something to be a multi-site. So I will share my screen real quick. And I've set up a really simple local installation in this case. So this is a bare minimum WordPress installation. It's a single site as of now. and it doesn't include anything. So this is a default installation as of now. It doesn't have any plugins. It doesn't have any specific themes in here. But now it's simply just a single site. So let's go through the process of what we need to do for this to be a multi-site. So the first thing that you need to do is actually go into your WP config file of your site and make sure that you add a line to it. So I've opened up my WP config for, you probably don't specifically know where this is. So this is usually on your hoster. You can connect via SSH, FTP, however you would like it, or your live console like Plesk or something. And you will find in the root installation of your WordPress, you will find a file that is looking like this, and it's called wp-config.php. And if you scroll through it a little bit, so there's a lot of things going on. You don't have to take care of it. If you scroll through it a little bit, you see something like add any custom element between this line and stop editing line. So that's the stop editing. And in here, you can add stuff. And the first thing you want to add here is this little line I already previously added, but commented out. It is WP allow multisite true. So this is the only thing that you essentially have to do. So this, I will save this now. Usually you have to then upload it to FTP, but right now I'm just saving it. And now I'm refreshing this site. And you see nothing has changed because now we allowed it to happen, but we haven't set it up yet. The one thing that you will see appearing is using tools, you can see this little item network setup. So you go through here and now you see what you have a decision to do. So Robert, maybe you can tell a little bit about what core decision you need to be doing here, and maybe some pros or cons on what is actually a subdomain, what is a subdirectory first. Can you explain this a little?
As you can see here, so a subdomain means a URL, like a URL point before the current domain. So if you have example.com for example, then you have like if we do it in a localization way, in a translation way, then we would add like, for example, the locale there. So it would be DE, or in this example here, site one dot WordPress minus test minus 7 dot local. And the benefit for that is that this is a way of making sure that you have a different URL. With the downsides of like cookie can be a bit messy, and the like the default is then you need to have the subdomain pointing towards the WordPress installation. So that's why, in my opinion, it's not really the most used feature, because the problem is you need to have the URL you just entering for the first few steps. You need to kind of have this able to be reached, and you also run into like, okay, then you need to has a SSL certificate, and like all the mess comes with new domains. So that's why a wildcard is then an easy way to make sure you have this subdomain up and running. The problem is, again, then with your hosting company, if they are open to allowing that, if they are enabling you to have this possibility. So I would really recommend to use subdomains. Then you just have a subdirectory in at your WordPress installation. Cookie wise, it's very easy. SSL
You mean you would recommend subdomains or subdirectories?
subdirectory.
Subdirectory, okay, because you just said subdomain.
Yes. I'm here to confuse.
Just to clarify. So if you're having subdomains, obviously this is a beautiful or nice looking URL, but essentially you have to, each time you register a new site, you have to, if you don't have a wildcard record, you have to tell your server essentially that this subdomain exists and points to this installation. So you have to have a different step on their setup level, on their hosting level essentially, to register that site. And if you have subdirectories, Robert, I think you're pretty much easy to go and just create a new site, correct?
Yes. And with the feature, since I think 4.4 or 5.4, you can simply then, after you created it, you can change then again the URL to whatever you like, and like keep in mind whatever points to the server. So you cannot simply enter facebook.com and imaginingly like receiving a website on this URL. You need to make sure that something points to this exact from your server configuration. Something points to this URL, to this server, to this WordPress installation.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much for explaining. So we will not go for subdomains because I haven't configured anything here locally to make this running, but we will quickly take a look at how this can be later on then used anyway. So we will opt in for going with subdirectory, which is much easier, and we can name our network. I don't necessarily need to do this right now. I can change this later as well, but WordPress test 7 sites is fine for now. So I have clicked setup, and now you're prompted with this screen essentially. So this looks a bit tacky, and it is a bit tacky to be honest, but this is what you need to be doing 2 more things. And the first thing is you already edited the WordPress WP config file, and now we need to add some more to it. So this entire text box, select this text, copy it, and go back to your WP config. And you can actually remove this line. You can keep it, but you can also remove it and insert the lines prompted. So be careful here. Don't reload that screen right now because you also have to copy this entire setup. And this you need to be adding to the htaccess in here. So the htaccess is a file that essentially like the server needs to kind of know where to point to, which URL points to what file, essentially. You could frame it a little bit like this. And the htaccess should already be there in your root WordPress installation, so at the same level of your WP config file. And again, copy that text and go to the htaccess. I already opened the htaccess, and you can see here I need to get rid of this entire setup, so I delete it. I can also get rid of the comments in here, but I don't want to. And I have to insert the rules that were prompted to me. So if I may have to make sure that I save this. So I saved both of those, and now I can actually reload my site, my backend, and now I will be prompted to log in again. This is what Robert was referring to. So now I have to quickly make sure that um, I log in. So this is just because cookie things are now a bit different. And now I'm logging in, and I will be redirected to this exact same page, but you can see it's already not really an actual page. And now this is a multi-site. So that's it. That's now a multi-site. And we take a look at the front end and nothing has changed. So for now, it is technically multi-site enabled. So we do not have multiple sites here. We do only have one site. But the one thing that is different now is you can see this little My Site item showing up in the admin bar. Also, if I go into the backend, you can see the same site. And there you can see one site for now. This is the actual only site we're working on. And you can see network admin. And this is what we were referring to as network admin. If I click on this dashboard, you can see the URL of your site is now changed. So you have WP admin and then network. And this is the management level of things where you can now add new sites or remove old sites. So the easiest point is go into sites, and there you can see my site. You can see your sites that are existing here. You have a setup for users, you have a setup for plugins, and you have a setup for themes. Let's maybe create a site and talk a little bit about the problems that you could be facing here. So creating a site is as simple as this. So because I went for the subdirectory approach, I'm now prompted to create the subdirectory that I want to use. So let's maybe call it site 2. Just pretty easy. We have to give it a subtitle, site 2, define a language, and say who is the admin, because admin needs to be created there, and click add site. And that's it. Now this site is created. I will leave this for here for now. And now I can visit the dashboard, edit the site. I want to visit the dashboard, and I want to actually visit the site. So now you can see the site has the subdirectory of site -2. And that's where the site is. And you can now create pages in here, posts in here, then those will be added to URL essentially. And this works as an own instance, an own website. In this site, I can enter a user, I can maintain my plugins in here, I can maintain my themes in here, I can say which theme is active, which plugin is active, and stuff like that. I can create new users specifically only for this site, and I can see it now in here as my second site showing up. And maybe let's edit the site for a moment, because this is, Robert, what you were referring to. What if I now want to use a different URL of this site? For example, first of all, let's take a look at your problem. You described that you could potentially have facebook.com as your second subsite. Should we try it? I-
Sure.
So first of all,
You can still edit the website. So because you're not changing the main network site, you're still able to change the URLs at any time. So yeah, sure, let's or you use Greyd.io as URL and just see what then happens.
good idea. So I'm trying to use Greyd.io as my second site. Let's maybe make sure that I copy this URL first to revert it, and I save it now, and nothing happens. For now, I can still edit the site. I can still see the site in here. If I go to all sites, you can see it's now Greyd.io. Maybe take a look at visit, and now you can see I'm not actually at the site. So the WordPress is pointing me to Greyd.io, but this is not actually a site in my multi-site. So this doesn't work. It doesn't. If you want a facebook.com point to your website, you actually have to have root access of this specific domain and tell the domain to point at your site. So right now, if I want to visit the dashboard, for example, let's go one step back and click on dashboard. Now you go into Greyd.io/admin, which is not how it works right now because I'm not logged in. So I cannot actually do anything with that site. But you're seeing your site, your WordPress is still working. So you didn't really produce an error there, but it's essentially not working. But you can have actual other domains pointing you to your site. You just have to have root access here. But let's edit it for now and revert it to the site 2. But what you can do now is you can, for example, call it a site 3. Let's do that. And let's visit it. And now you can see it's site 3, and it's actually, I'm still logged in. I'm still seeing my test 7, and the URL just has changed. So it's really easy to set up the site and specifically change it. And you can now also go to the approach of having like a subdirectory if you want to. But then again, you have to tell the server that this specific URL exists and points to this installation. So it is a bit more tricky, but you can now change it and actually use subdomains and subdirectories simultaneously. Maybe one thing we can add here, Robert, is what if I already have a pre-existing installation or a pre-existing website? So for example, in my case, what if I already had like a site like WordPress local / news, something like this, and this was a pre-existing website, but not pointing to this installation. It's entirely different setup somewhere else, hosted somewhere else. What would be then happening, Robert? Is that an issue?
You mean when you upgrade your single site to a multi-site and this was already existing WordPress? Yeah, WordPress will only allow you to use use subdomains, because the problem is with the all existing URLs you already could have, like, depends on your permalink scheme. It could already be that pages were named, for example, site 2, or pages were already or like posts, you had a post format, you just had like post name as your permalink. Then the problem is that those sites would no longer exist, because if you, for example, have a normal WordPress site and you have docs as a category, or like as a page, then the problem would be if you now have a site called docs, that the site wins. Like, the site is the first thing that WordPress finds and go like, okay, that's now a site, and the connection would no longer be established. So that's why WordPress will simply tell you you need to use subdomains, because the problem is you could override existing sites, existing blog posts, and with that WordPress protects you, and you can override that, but that's an extra step you need to take if you start with an existing WordPress site and upgrade to multi-site. It can be a little bit more like work, and you need to know what you're doing. So that's why we recommend using multi-site as early as possible if you already know you're going this direction, that you do not have this limitation or like need to this extra work steps to make sure it happens, that make sure that works.
Yeah, I just created a similar conflict right now. So I created a page that I called site 3. Now this page has this URL, WordPress -test7.local/site -3. But site -3 is actually the site that I have created. So in this case, if I want to take a look at this page, it will not work. This page is now automatically pointing to this entire new website. So what I have to do is either I can rename my page and not make it called site 3, but make it called whatever, site 1. And if I now view the page, you can see site 1 is actually pointing to my site. Or I can go the different route, obviously having this as site 3. But this is like kind of an example of the conflicts you're having. Right now, site 3 is pointing to that, but I can make sure this is not my site 2. So
Yeah,
now
I
site
could
3.
recommend, like, domains are cool. You can simply use domains in multi-site, and that's an easy way to distinguish those things. And if you, for example, have um, a language site, or you have, like, sites from this country, you have an easy way to simply use a domain from this country to simply, like, differentiate all these things and make them really home in those countries. And so and you, like, I never, like, stumble in this problem because we always use domains, and domains are easy to get.
Yeah. Let's maybe take a look at this setup and talk a little bit about the pros and cons that a multi-site brings you. So obviously we talked a lot about like management and having shared assets and making sure you're kind of overviewing all those sites. So maybe talk a little bit about the setup. So a huge pro that I would say is having centralized plugin and theme management. So if I now want to, first of all, if I'm is in this single site installation, I only have 2025 available as an option here. And I can control this. Let's close a lot of those tabs. I can control this from a network level. So in terms of themes, I can now say, okay, these two themes are network enabled. And I can also add a new theme. Let's maybe add the Greyd theme and install it. Automatically installed. And then I need to make it available for my network. So I make this network enabled. And now I have the options here of actually activating a different theme. And each and every installation here can have their own themes. So I will go to site 2 and use the Greyd.WP theme to actually have a different appearance in this site than on my other site. So the main site has not changed at all. So let's take a look at the main site, visit WordPress.7. So this hasn't changed, but site 2 has changed and has the Greyd theme now active. I can do similar things for plugins. So in here, because we're not in the network right now, we are on the single site instance, I cannot actually install any plugins. So the admin doesn't have control over installing plugins, but on a network level, I can opt in to install some of the plugins. So for example, I don't know, let's just select the Gutenberg plugin for now, for example, and installing that. And now this plugin, once installed, becomes available to all the sites. And this is one of the pros. You have shared plugins, shared themes, and shared versions of those plugins and themes. But it's also maybe one of the downside, Robert. What do you think?
Yes, so we have, like, three versions of plugins in compatibility with WordPress. So we call them, like, the non-compatible plugins. That are plugins that were written by pigs running over a keyboard, and there are more plugins, as you can think, in the WordPress plugin directory and elsewhere on other plugin sites, that are really a disgrace to programming. And those plugins can have errors on multisite, because multisite is a feature since WordPress 3.0 in WordPress, but not all the plugin developers know of this feature, and not all plugin developers are using the WordPress APIs to do things. There are still people there that actively, like, changing things in the database without using, like, the API of WordPress. And you should, like, not use these plugins, but you will bump over them and simply go like, oh, why is this plugin not working? Yeah, that's one of the reasons. The other plugins are passively compatible, so they are not really programmed for multi-site, but with them using the functionality of the WordPress API and adhering to the rules, the programming rules of WordPress core standards. Um, their benefit is that they simply work in a multi-site without needing extra care, extra like, making sure the things work. They just work, but they are not actively doing something for multi-site. And then there are the actively compatible plugins for multi-site. if you install them on a multi-site, you might not see anything in the single installation, in the single environments, but you might see a different a new button in the network area, because they know they are installed in a multi-site network, and they go like, oh yeah, my compatibility, my features are different in a multi-site. You can now manage me for all the sites. I have now a standard, and maybe other sites in the multi-site can work differently with their features, but they have the benefit of simply using active components of multi-site and enabling administrators of multi-site to being used in.
Right. So yeah, that is also like, so it is great that you can enable and maintain plugins from a global perspective, but this is one of the heavy downsides. If you have a terrible plugin that crashes your site, chances are your entire network is conflicted and your entire site couldn't work anymore. So if you, for example, have a fatal error in one of the plugins that you network enable for all of your sites will stop working. But it's also kind of easy then to get rid of the plugin, because you only have to get rid of it once and remove it from your installation, and it automatically is removed from all the sites. And similar with themes and other things. But this is one of the downside. If one site is crashed, this could potentially affect other sites as well. If you have a malicious plugin in there, this could really affect this.
I need
Another thing,
I need to quote myself, don't run bad code. So that's why staging sites were invented. And if something touches your production environment, make sure you know what it's doing, and don't try out things on the live sites, on the production sites. Have a staging environment for that to then break, and you can simply get rid of it. So that's why like, don't run bad code is a thing that I really hold dear to my heart, and empower everybody to please think before you enable plugins.
yeah, but that's also where Multisite steps in kind of in a nice way, because once you've confirmed that a plugin works the way you intend it to work, you can make sure that every site has access to the plugin, but they don't have access to whatever the plugin they feel like. So they actually cannot install a terrible plugin, because you have full control over what plugins are available in your installation, and you have that control layer, instead of them being able to just plug in whatever they feel the need to and have everything in a plugin and have a lot of terrible plugins running. So this also then multisite steps in and gives you a lot of control. I think another advantage that we've just briefly mentioned is users as well. So now you can actually maintain users on a network level, and once you've added them, I cannot be removed here because I'm the only user, and WordPress would essentially not work anymore. But once you've added users, you can remove them for the entire network from here, and you will already see the sites where the users are registered to. So this is what Robert was referring to. It is really easy for you to onboard and offboard people. You can just create the user for the entire network and then get rid of the user. And also same thing for themes, same thing for plugins, and some settings as well. Like in a default multi-site, you only have these settings. But for example, Greyd registers a couple of settings as well, where you can define something for the entire network, and each site then also already uses those options and has this kind of forced on them. So yeah, I think that's a good overview of what downsides and advantages we have in a multi-site. Um, Robert, I now want to actually shake things up a little bit. We have a lot of in-depth discussion now, and we've seen some live demo. We've seen some code that we actually edited. Now I want to do something similar, something different. So I want to ask you some quick questions. Some of them might be WordPress related, some of them not at all. And you can feel free to answer them however you like. You can just answer them with a single word. So the idea is maybe just a brief answer and we go on to the next question. But you can also go ahead and share the story behind it. And quickly, the last question is probably something where you want to talk a little bit longer about it. So for now, everything clear? Can we start?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Robert, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Both.
Both. Why both?
When I need to be up in the morning, I'm up in the morning. When I need to be up at night at WordCamp Europe, for example, I'm up later in the evening.
All right, good answer. What's the first website you've ever built?
Geocities.com/attend/Delphi/9778. Was a website for with my friends in 1997.
Yeah, actually, that URL works as of now.
No, GeoCity was
I thought you remembered it, so
it's no longer active, but you can but yeah, it's like people like saved GeoCities. The problem was we were using frame sets at that time, so not everything that we did was saved on these sites that were saving GeoCities from being turned off.
but I find it interesting that you remember the URL, which is kind of specific. That yeah, perfectly. What is one WordPress plugin you cannot live without?
Um, that's a good question. I would say we're currently working on a plugin called Multisite, SYDE, and we are using it on all multi-sites we're using because there's a easy way to get new features tested that everybody in multi-site could use with.
That's interesting. Is there one issue? If you could fix one issue in WordPress forever, what would that be?
Um, there is an idea of like getting multi-site as being the standard. There is things before we need to do this before because the problem is not multisite cannot run on all servers on the world because as you saw, like the installations is a little bit weird in some ways, and you need to have server configuration up and running. But if we can get people to have if their server is ready to have multi-site enabled by default, that would be something we would love to do, and I would love to do, and my company would love to do, because that's would enable more people to use this feature. Because some people are afraid of multi-site because the installation seems I totally get it. I'm technology background. It's can be confusing. So that is one thing we would love to have an easier way into people using multi-site.
Yeah, I agree. Essentially, like making it multi-site ready by
Yeah.
default. Like
Yeah,
it
but
makes it
again,
easier for you to just
many ups and downs with that. We need to make sure that like servers are ready because people run WordPress on a toaster. So maybe it is not multi-site ready, but your normal day-to-day WordPress hosting solution could be already subdirectory ready. So that's why is something we really would love to have in WordPress.
all right. Next question. What is the most unusual place you've ever worked from?
Airplane, but is it unusual?
Uh, I
Yeah.
worked
Oh, wait. I was once in a bar in Berlin where we had like we were like having fun with each other and like simply being at 2 a.m. Having jokes with each other. And I opened my laptop to do something. So maybe that's unusual.
so
But like
here I am drunk in a bar. Okay.
no, I'm not drinking alcohol, but again,
Ah,
like me,
having fun
like
in a
it's
bar.
so weird that like normal like I have not really something weird because everything I do for some people looks weird.
Okay. What's your favorite non-technical hobby that keeps you creative?
Um, like it's still technology in a way. It's still just keeping up with like how AI and how like people engaging with each other using technology. So it's the same thing like understanding how technology shapes society because that's my day job and that's the thing that I do for now like over 2 decades. So that's something that yeah still I do as a pastime hobby.
Okay. Last question. What are multi-sites?
They are called multi-networks. Multi-sites, I coined the term because it's easier to understand what it is because it's a network on upon network. So it's the same thing as we had with multi-site. It's multiple installations on multiple instances on one installation, and the only thing that is now different is what you just created and the sites that you added. This was all in the network one, and there is a table in the database with the sites in it, and you just can add a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and as much numbers as you can think about. And these are all different sites, the different networks, and you can have sites in these networks. And as I told you before, you are only the super admin in this site. So the benefit is that you can have a different site where the super admin of the one side is not the super admin of the other side. And the benefit for that is to really enable, for example, different sites you can spin off easily. Landing pages, for example, you can give someone from marketing an URL, and they can simply spin up as much landing page as they want, but they are not interfering with the main multi-sites, with the main networks. So they have their own network, they have network activated plugins, and they can be their own network super admin in this network, but they are not a super admin in the first or second networks. So they can simply roam free there, install themes and plugins, or you can easily also limit that to them, that you cannot install plugins, cannot install themes. And the benefit for that is really to empower more people to move faster and staying on the same WordPress installation.
But I use multi-sites because you coined the term. I'm aware. I've heard you say it a couple of times, and I've actually read you say it as well. Um, but it's not a core feature, right? So how does it work? Can you explain
It's it.
how could I now convert this one I've created, this multi-site I've created, into a multi-site? Or
It's already that's the fun with that. This feature, this functionality was already added in WordPress 3.0, so it's over a decade old. This feature, the only thing missing is the interface for that. So
that's
so
sweet.
you yeah, not everybody needs an interface for that. So if you add a new site in the a new line into the database of this table, then you immediately have this site created and you can move sites over. There is an interface for that. The plugin is called Multi Networks. And then you have an easy way to have an like bare minimum interface to interact with these networks. But you can turn off the plugin Multi Networks and it still works, because the feature that enables you to have different sites in different networks, that was already merged with WordPress in 3.0.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. So if you are interested in having multiple multi-sites, kind of like multi-networks, running, check out the plugin, and probably read through some of the things Robert is discussing, or let's talk to him on one of the next WordCamps. You can always find him. I quickly want to talk a little bit about some myths. So there are some myths around WordPress multi-sites. So I think you're probably aware of some of them, or clients or people, whoever came up to you and said, "Ah, multi-site, I don't want to use it because it's just for blocks." So for example, that's something that I've heard in the past. What are some of the myths you can think of, and are there are they actually valid, or is that more of like a myth that you say, no, that's not valid?
So the ones that are most prominent that we hear often, we already myth busted a few of them in this conversation. So the one that I always hear is like multi-site is inflexible. So people think that the that not being able that everybody can add a plugin means you cannot add plugins, but you can easily do as like admin, as a super admin in the site, and like add them to the possibilities of plugins to be enabled. So it's really something where if you need, for example, for compliance in one country or in like 10 sites, you need those plugins. You can add them in then to 10 sites, or you can network activate them. You can have a different multi-network and have a plugin network wide and this network enabled in this one network and not in the other. So there's also the possibility of flexibility. You can have like different themes, you can have different child themes, and you also have the possibility to exactly have like domains matched to that. The other one that we hear is multi-site is unstable, but we already covered that because with it being merged into WordPress 3.0, which is like over a decade old, it's really stable. Um, and we already covered the different versions, or like different compatibility with WordPress of plugins. So that is the most breaking thing in WordPress and deem them it to be unstable because people used very bad quality of plugins and were wondering why a $5 plugin that they simply had, or like a plugin they wrote themselves with vibe coding, that it's not really working on multi-site because like the APIs are not really used, and that's why it can break. And the other thing that we hear very often is that multi-site is too complicated. And I totally get that. If you
Yeah, that's one where I think that's actually a little valid as well. Yeah.
Yes and no. You are also, I think, bad at arching. My assumption, Jacob. I don't know you, but I think you are not good at arching. That, in my opinion, is because you don't have the training. So if people never used multi-site and they think they can like walk over water on multi-site, um, they are probably not. And the fun thing with multisite is that whatever problem you have, whatever problem you run into in multisite, there is a good chance your problem was solved a decade ago. So it's a very good chance that someone solved it in 2015, and you just need to use the same solution, whatever your workflow is that you say, like, I need to have this particular workflow. It might be that we already discussed that. We already, as a community, we're already going like, yeah, like that's solved since 2018. And so, and people think they just use their normal single site knowledge and then go like, yeah, that's the same thing. It is, except in a few instances where it's not. Like the user is shared and people are not really have it in their mind whatever they do, that they know like the user is the same on all the installations, like all the instances. So it's really about um the workflows that you need to unlearn. Like some things you have that you go like, I always do it that way when I install a new WordPress, and you don't, because it's you just setting up an installation, so you don't, or like an instance, you don't install WordPress. Um, and one thing, if you're using multi-site and you are professional, like you are not shying away from command line, but you're not really into that, I can recommend to you WordPress CLI. It's a command line interface for WordPress, and if you manage more than one site, for example, it's a real time saver. You can automate things. You can have the possibility to connect commands with each other. So you can go like, give me all the posts that have this particular category, and now I'm adding a new category to that. I'm adding a new user to that as the owner of these posts. So you can connect those things, and that's just a command line like example for WordPress, but you can also use it for multi-site to install plugins, to manage user, to manage capabilities. And that's the one thing each multi-site user like needs to know. You don't need to use it, but you just need to know that there is a command line interface for you out there that could really ease the way you work with WordPress.
Yeah, I want to add one thing to this term that I said it's too complicated. I get the feedback. That's what I mean. I understand that. I mean, what I showed right now, it took me a couple of seconds or maybe a minute. Obviously, the most time I was wasting because I was discussing what I'm doing. But setting things up is it looks complicated at first. And once a lot of users that we've talked to essentially told us, okay, once there's something that code I need to paste somewhere, oh, that is way too complicated. I'm not touching that. So this is something where I can see, okay, this is valid. This is complicated for users. Just not just the button that I click and essentially it just automatically does something for me. So that's where I see, okay, it is a bit complicated. And also you have to understand really what network and network management, what this layer does. So you have to understand a little bit. So it's kind of complicated at first, but once you understood it, and this is one thing you have to understand, then I think it's really easy to use. And obviously, yeah, you have to rethink one or two things, how you approach things. But I can see that this is a valid myth or criticism of multi-sites. It's a bit complicated to set up if you really not ever touched any code.
I,
Another myth. Yes,
yeah,
yes, yeah. You
if
add
you want
something.
to go, I just like my last thing that I hear. Multi-site is slow.
Yeah, that's the one I was going for as well. Like, yeah, maybe share some insights from your perspective.
Yeah, so multi-site slow comes mostly from the people that are not aware that they now host like 5 or 20 WordPress sites on one installation, as they were ordering different, like, and depends on the hosting solution, that you have different hosting packages that you would do for 20 installations of WordPress, and then you assume you can do all of that in one installation because it's all managed, it's all the same, and you don't like really ramp up the performance or the quality of hosting as you do for like managing 50 or 100 or 200 sites in one multi-site. And that's the most thing I hear from people when I'm then asking them questions of like, okay, how did you estimate the size of the network you're having? And then like the follow-up question is then like, do you use object caching? Which is again has nothing to do with multi-site. It's nothing like That's nothing multi-site specific. It's just that if you going into the more professional side of WordPress, and multi-sites most of the times is, then like normal ways to speed up your WordPress, and object caching means that you have stuff that were coming from the database is not like, normally it's got thrown away every request you're doing. WordPress will like calculate the menu, like the navigation, and throws it away after the site has been rendered. And the possibility for caching is, for example, to simply have this ready menu, or like the navigation with all the sub elements there, to have it in memory of the server, and to not have a database query for that. So this easily like speeds up WordPress, and that's a thing that in professional world a normal thing to simply use object caching, and but it's not really a known thing for people that just enter this field. So the easiest way is simply estimate how big your website can be. Go to your hosting company, tell them what you want to do, and then they maybe give you a more priced environment. But that's also then be able to handle the load of like 200, maybe not like big sites with much traffic, but 200 like small ones with like maybe one or two like sites that have more traffic. But then you have a hosting package that really can handle those kinds of requests.
Yeah. So, are there specific things other than object caching? If you have, do you see any issues if I have like WordPress.com is a multi-site, essentially. So, are there, from your experience, any limitations on multi-sites? Can I manage hundreds of sites? Can I manage thousands of sites? What in general, we don't want to go into detail, but in general, are there some of the things that I need to be able to do or take care of in order for, because I also hear this, it's not scalable, it's slow, you cannot really manage a lot of the sites. Do you see any limitations in terms of the size of a multi-site? And if you see, where is that limitation, or is there none if you take care of specific things?
So there's like, as you know, like WordPress.com is like, I think, has millions of users. So there's not a real limitation in a way. There is like LudaCrowdDB is like, there's HyperDB, LudaCrowdDB, and like other like database drop-ins for WordPress. If you know you go over 100 sites, then the possibility of using those features to simply ease the load of database, so that you have, for example, multiple database servers, or can move WordPress sites to a different specific database server to just make sure that they get enough like resources as they need. So those are limits on like or those are specific things you could do, you should do, if you know you're going in a big number region for WordPress sites. Like if you're already thinking you're going ahead over like 5,000 and whatever, like that amount of sites going up there, if you already know you go in this direction, you need to have a like a database drop in to make sure you, if you horizontal scale the WordPress, the web server, and there needs to be a way for you to also tackle the database load and not have it on one server, because that would be insane. Um, there's no server big enough, no database server big enough to handle that. So that's why everybody in this field who uses more than a few hundred sites in a multi-site, or even if you go over 100, you should think about that beforehand to have an easy way scaling up all these sites.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well. Like, if you want to go in these thousands of sites, you should probably take care of how your database is loaded, where it's hosted, and stuff like that. But usually, I would say as well, if you're not going over the hundreds, if you're in the tens, I would say there's not like obviously it depends a little bit on your traffic and stuff like that as well. Like, you have to think about the load and how you want to set up hosting. So don't host on a toaster, how like Robert you would say that. But essentially, if you go in that direction, you shouldn't have any significant performance issues. But yeah, the database in thousands of sites gets large because obviously there are more posts, more content if you have more sites in general. Um, I want to quickly talk about what we are doing as well, like what Greyd or what Multisite does for us, because as Greyd as the plugin we give to our users, obviously there's a lot of things that we can actually enable for our users by default by just using multi-sites. So I want to quickly share how this looks in WordPress, and you can see this is a demo installation of mine. But by default, because you have a multi-site installed, in this case, it becomes really easy for you to just maintain your sites from one perspective. You can preview your sites, you can see what is going on, you can migrate a site from point A to point B, you can see what is going on in all your sites, and you can even like maintain database files, everything in each site by just having multi-sites enabled. And you can easily create a new site similar to multi-sites, you can connect them, and you can also then, for example, enable features for all of the sites. So that's what I was referring to. We, for example, specifically register settings for multi-site networks, so you can force sites to use specific features or force sites to not use specific features, like having advanced search capabilities, having accessibility rights and stuff like that enabled by default, and forcing them kind of into the. Also, obviously, settings are registered as well, so you can configure something once, and each site is just using it. You can add as the user from a global perspective. And then just to tackle what brand guidelines, what you were referring to, if you have multi-sites enabled, you don't need to connect similar sites to each other because they're already connected. They're in the multi-site. WordPress, each and every site potentially knows about the other sites and what is going on there. So you can now use contents across the sites. So for this example, just to give you a little insight of what is happening here, we have two sites here, which are like can have different brand look essentially. So they're looking a little bit different. The styling is different, but they're kind of using the same content in here. You can see those tiles, those boxes below here are in the same layout, and they're reusing a lot of the content that is in the multi-stage. Just by default, there's nothing fancy we do on a hosting level, nothing in here. Just by having a multi-site, you already can utilize a lot of the features that we offer to you. And this, if you have a plugin that does it as well, multi-site just enables you to do a lot more things. And then it even goes the way that you have like you can implement global search. You search through all your sites at once. You can use a site to search all your posts of all your sites and take the user directly to the site that they actually want to use. So a lot of things that usually would only be possible if you have really complex setup and API endpoints and a lot of communication between sites. It's just easy to use for you to just use multi-site. So we love multi-sites. We love it as a feature. Our users can create instances like this where you can essentially maintain all your client's project in one instance and see what's going on everywhere without the need of having complicated server setups and complicated stuff. It just out of the box works and gives you a lot of more flexibility that you otherwise wouldn't have. So, yeah, thank you very much, Robert. That was a really insightful discussion. Is there anything like in terms of multi-sites, or maybe not in terms of your multi-sites? You mentioned the plugin that you're working on. Anything else you want to share or want to add to the conversation? One thing that we didn't tackle when it comes to multi-site? Anything you can think of?
Yeah, it's a plugin that I already mentioned, like Multisite with SYDE at the end. We are looking for people that use Multisite and to get like the small annoying bugs that they are having, or like not bugs, like features that would make their life easier. Also from you, Jacob, to like the things that you really would like to see like as a default in WordPress, or like in default in Multisite, that we can get more people to come forward and don't keep their bugs, their feature wishes to themselves, because we know that the issue tracker for WordPress for Multisite is not really actively used by many people. And so we would love to have like more engagement with people that are using Multisite, and to come forward and go like, I have like these kind of like 20 lines of code that I add to every installations of WordPress where Multisite is used, and we would like to hear them, and we would like to have a discussion if there's something in there that could be maybe merged into core. So we would really are open and to want to hear that, and also feedback for multilingual press. So if people are using multilingual solutions, and they are already knowing Multisite, or they want to explore Multisite for that regard, we are happy to give people like some training, like testing licenses, to simply get a feedback, because we think for a Multisite solution, it's really an easy way to use Multisite for that, because the environments are really so close to each other that there is a benefit of having not that much of like workarounds as some single site plugins require. So really, we were looking forward to get some feedback from people who would like to use that.
Yeah, we definitely have to stay in touch in regards to the plugin, because I have ideas. Uh, feedback. All right. Yeah, thank you very much, Robert. It was a pleasure that you've been here. Thank you very much for taking the time. I quickly wanna mention the next conversation. The next great conversation will be about AI. We have a lot of like two really interesting people in the conversation. I will be joining as well. So because we're talking a little bit techie, a little bit in the AI stuff, we have some thoughts, some things we want to share, and want to discuss a lot. So stay tuned, check that out, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can find each and every episode as they are appearing on a YouTube channel. Yep. So I hope everybody liked it. Robert, thank you very much for being here. Have a great day as well. And I think we will hear each other in the next episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.